Well, hello and welcome to I Love Gay today. And this is our first show in the new year. If you don't count the ones we did in Denver last weekend when we were gallivanting around the mountains. So anyway, this is amazing because we're here with Naomi from Lesflix in London. How are you?
Hi, yeah, really good, thanks. Apart from the fact, obviously, we're back in lockdown, but that can't be helped.
Oh, I know. The news just continues on. We thought maybe there'd be a break in the new year, but I still have hope, regardless of all the craziness that went on in our own country last night.
Yeah, and there's a lot of positivity coming out of lockdown as well. So you just got to find the positive, find the opportunity, do what you can.
Which kind of leads us towards, I mean, I would say that during a lot of the changes that went on last year, you're one of those organizations, primarily online, but an organization that really was able to kind of do things differently and bring folks together. In this case, lesbians who love film.
Yeah, I mean, what a year last year was. If I look at the beginning of the year, we were focused primarily face to face, doing physical events to show that women wanted to go to the cinema and watch films in the cinema and to prove a paying audience. And then come March 23rd, we had to do a complete pivot 180, switch it all up onto online. And I mean, we achieved a lot. But it was pretty crazy because we weren't really actually ready to go live online at all. But that's one of those positives. It actually spurred us on, and I think we've grown our reach a lot more than we would have done if we'd have carried on our current plan as it was mainly face to face, just because the number of people we can reach online is significantly higher.
Yeah, yeah. We've kind of encountered the same, even in a different, just in the business to business marketing our company and outreach and presenting. The abrupt shift to what we started to do online, including this show, which we just thought was going to be a little bit for fun, but all of it has given us a new path into things that we probably would have never looked at before.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I still do miss the cinema, and I think there's definitely a need for Lesflix and generally people to support the cinema. I mean, no filmmaker makes their film for the small screen, but in the absence of that, we've been able to connect with women who otherwise are disconnected from the community because they may have children, or they may be disabled and not be able to get out to the scene, or they could even just work unsociable hours. And normally, by the time they finish their shift, they wouldn't have time to commute to wherever the local community was hanging out. So suddenly we've seen this whole new community online, and we've been able to connect people that otherwise were really isolated from other women like themselves. So it's been really quite an interesting year.
Well, it's because you're not only connecting these women, but you're also allowing them to collaborate, which is I think that next big step, and that's what you're doing with your you have these special events that you were saying you went from the real world into kind of a virtual world online.
Yeah, I mean, we were really lucky. We got approached by Curve at the beginning of lockdown about doing an online festival, and overnight we switched, and I was able to set up 3 months worth of online events within a week of lockdown starting. Which I don't know how. When I look back, I think I just didn't sleep for a week, and then we just kind of carried on going. And every time an opportunity came up, and that's really how we started in 2019 as well. Though was if someone came to us with a collaboration opportunity, we just said yes, and then you work out how to make it happen.
Yeah.
I've always believed the power in our community is the collaboration, community support, working together. We're by no means niche or small, but we're perceived that way because we're quite invisible. And the only way you're ever going to kind of be able to really make big change and reach more people and do more is to actually collaborate with people and work together. So we've done a lot, but a lot of that has been by working with other people, by being really just open to ideas and doing things a bit differently as well. But yeah,
Yeah.
the one thing for sure is I kept seeing people in webinars or in panels where the community were trying to network with each other in the chat function down the side of Zoom. And I'm like, that's not the way this works. So all of our online events, they're on Zoom, and the women all have their videos on, they all chat, they're a safe space. We've held over 140 events, about 120 of them were online on Zoom, and we haven't had any Zoom bombing because we look after our community. We put in place safety measures. Our events generally last for more than 3 hours because everyone just is enjoying themselves so much that it's really hard to get them to leave. And obviously we don't have the ability to just close the door or ring the bell. So we quite often just let it go on because a lot of these women are living alone at the moment. They're working from home, they're socially isolated. And we're offering that connection with a common interest as well. So we're really proud of what we've done in 2020, and we're planning a lot more of that in 2021.
Yeah, no, I'm one of you did probably didn't know it until this show, and I'm one of your biggest fans, and it's because I truly believe that what you're doing is revolutionary, and I'll explain. Because back in the day, if you wanted to, if there was a lesbian film, let's just say Wolf Video or some created some product, there were these gatekeepers, and yet it wasn't a negative. It was just there was only a few places you could get the word out. It was Curve magazine, Diva magazine, and then the internet came along, and we were a part of that as well. Then we had gaywire.com, but then we realized speaking to women was different, and we created Lesbian Nation, which then became She Wired. And I say all that because then all of a sudden film had additional venues in order to be able to get the word out and let folks know that they were there. But in today's world, with all the technology and the way social has kind of grown up from MySpace all the way through now Facebook and Twitter, and that's where I primarily see what you're doing is on Twitter, but the access and the potential to bring new communities together that have never really been together before. And so, you've really carved out something that's why I was saying is revolutionary, because you're not just kind of talking about it through reviews and so forth, but you're actually going the next step to actually create a whole new way of consuming lesbian film and media.
Yeah, well, I used to run a lifestyle website and do a lot with the community and the grassroots. And part of that was going to film festivals. So I met filmmakers. I always was talking to, women in the community. And that's what drove me to start this, was I kept hearing from the audience, I mean, the amount of people saying, I really want to watch a lesbian film. What can I watch? And the recommendations were always the same: Bound, But I'm a Cheerleader, and Carol. And I was sitting there going, oh my God, there are hundreds of films. Why do you not know they exist? And then I'd meet filmmakers at film festivals, and they'd be like, I've made my film, but I didn't get a distribution deal, or I got a distribution deal and I'm still not seeing any return. And I was like, this system's broken. So what I then looked at was taking on board my knowledge of the community, and then my knowledge of what I'd kind of come across from talking to filmmakers, attending festivals, and a little bit of when I studied a long time ago when I did media studies. And I realized that maybe I could create something as a vehicle that would actually just improve the system. But rather than just kind of hit in one area, like we could just do a streaming platform. But the problem is a lot of film doesn't even get made because it doesn't get funding. And then I was like, well, we could do the community screenings. But I was like, but half the films aren't even getting into the cinemas. So then we looked at each problem on its own. And then we looked at what products and services and solutions we could put in place to try and make it better at every single level. So right through from pre-production all the way through to distribution. And everything works seamlessly together. And it's going to take some while to kind of really make some big change, but we can see already, we're making those changes. And because it's all the way through, it has much more impact. And it means that we're there ethically supporting both the filmmakers, the creators, and the audience. And we're really proud to be there, not as a capitalist product, as many platforms can end up being, but actually as more of a social enterprise. And we're there for both parties, and we're trying to find a way. There's always a middle ground. If you run your businesses for the right reason, you can run it and in a way that actually does support everyone.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is that if you focus on the success of your product and the idea and the concept, and not so much just focus on the money first, the money will follow.
I hope so. I'm definitely not in this to be rich, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But no, for me, I am a consumer of this film. I myself was tired of spending hours and hours trawling through YouTube and Vimeo and Amazon Prime, and then hearing that, how badly, like, Amazon's now paying a penny a view or like a cent a view. It's criminally low, and that's not ever going to help us get more film. So yeah, I mean, as a consumer myself, I mean, there is a slight selfish reason there that I also want an easier way to get to more film. There's still some gatekeeping taking place. Yeah. We need to break down some barriers. Historically, there's some challenges where distributors haven't seen funds from small platforms, so they're very reluctant to work with us. And that's something, well, we need to work with them. We need to show them that actually we are legitimate, we are going to pay. We're really working hard against an industry that's actually trying to bottom out pricing. There seems to be a race to the bottom. How cheap can you make film? But again, if you want more film, you need to realize you pay a reasonable price for it. And so there's a lot to do around kind of challenging some of the current like processes, some of the current pricing situations, and really trying to break down barriers and educate people why it's really important to pay for film. But if you do pay for it, the rewards are actually can be quite significant.
Yeah, since you were so involved with film festivals back in the day, but they've really evolved into the virtual space, and they're all learning and trying to figure out, through drive-in movie theater experiences and so forth. But my take on it would be that all of a sudden, next thing you know, they are now putting themselves into your sandbox, in a sandbox that you and others were kind of working on in one direction. They've kind of entered into that, and so does that mean that, like, sometimes films really look forward to having their premiere at a specific film festival? The bigger, the better. You think a lot of that's going to change?
Yeah, I mean, it's really difficult. I think already a lot of film festivals had already adapted slightly. So in the past, you couldn't have a film on a platform if you wanted to get into a festival. And already the majority of festivals had changed that for short films and even sometimes for features. I think the whole landscape's changing. Certainly some platforms, some festivals have found a way to go online with platforms. It's actually quite expensive to do that. And so they tend to be geo-blocked to one location. We definitely need to see some kind of change, and what that is still really to be established, because we don't know what's happening with the role of cinema. Obviously the theatrical wall now, where the gap between it showing in the cinema and it going to a platform has completely just vanished, and so everything's in a bit of a state of flummox at the moment. But we're actually really looking forward to trying to actually establish greater relationships with film festivals, because rather than lots of film festivals trying to create their own platforms, which I'm telling you, it's really expensive. We'd actually like to work with them. We've got the platform, and we can start to offer film festivals channels so they can have somewhere to put their content. And also, it's more of a permanent space. So not just while it's on the festival, but also beyond that. So we've already started working with 2 festivals.
Wow.
And I'm also thinking that's particularly important. If you look at LGBT festivals, a lot of them are grassroots, they're charitable, they're non-profit making. Those ones are going to struggle to survive if we can't start getting them away to have their festivals back. Because realistically, the face-to-face stuff is still really kind of quite fragile. And the last thing you want to do is plan a physical event and then find where you're located has gone into another lockdown, and suddenly you're just like, what are we doing? So we're building out a way to have channels for film festivals, so that both it's more at the moment for kind of films we have on the platform that have been at that film festival. We put them into that channel, and they have a year-round exposure of visibility of that festival, and showing some of the quality of the films that have been through that festival to people that might not have been in their past. But we can certainly also look at ways we can work with festivals live. We ran our own festival this year. We normally do one face-to-face in Wales. Yeah. And in 2020 in 2020 we had to take that online, and we were just lucky we already had a platform in place, that we were able to just do that without the extra cost. But there's just a lot of change still happening. But there'll be some festivals that won't survive this, there'll be others that will thrive. What we don't want to see is only the big festivals surviving, because actually, again, where do we see the authentic stories? Where do we see the real, grassroots stuff that really reflects our lives? Quite often that's not in those big festivals, it's in those grassroots indie festivals.
Yeah, I love all this. You have a bigger fan now than when we started this interview. and I'm one of those who travels. So I actually I had a whole trip planned to the UK and London and Manchester for last year, and I know what'll happen. We just don't know exactly when. And I really look forward to being able to connect with you in the real world, and even doing some of these, like carrying this story on with real world interviews, because I think we have a lot more to say and a great future together.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, I love to collaborate, so I'd be really happy to that. Funnily enough, right before lockdown, we were talking to a national UK cinema chain about touring some lesbian films around the UK, and I was absolutely gutted when they announced the lockdown, because I was like, I was 1 week away from like properly being able to really make a big impact. But again, I was looking at it was face to face. There's only a limit on what you could have connected to, and actually it was difficult because we weren't ready for the online, but it's really pushed us ahead. And I do actually have to say, I'm really, really, really grateful to all the volunteers who are helping us, because at the moment, Let's Fix is still a new organisation, and we're still very much building what we are on our structure. So actually, behind the scenes of everything you see we're doing, there's just a group of women
Yeah.
women all over the world, however, but they're just as passionate as I am, and they've jumped on my dream, and they're following me gladfully through everything we're doing. And they never say, I'm not sure we should do this, Naomi. They go, let's give it a go. So I've got an amazing team behind the scenes really pushing things forward.
This is fantastic. So no, I really appreciate you taking some time out to share your story and your inspiration and vision with our audience. And again, I look forward to being able to reconnect here in the next in this year, or as soon as we're all able to.
As soon as we can, yeah. And similarly, I really want to get out to the US, and thankfully things are changing, which means it's much more likely I can go now.
Exactly.
But again, we've got to wait for the health side of stuff to follow the political side of things.
Yeah, hope. That's my keyword this year. Hope.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, thanks again for everything. Wonderful to meet you.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
All right. Take care.
So good.